Some stories I tell easy. This ain't one of 'em. I've been settin' on this one a long while, turnin' it over, trying to decide if it's mine to tell at all. It ain't my story. It's Brother Asa Mullins's. Rode circuit through these hollers back in the 20s and 30s, prayin' in folks' front rooms when they couldn't get to church house regular. I never knew him myself. He was gone, for I was old enough to shake his hand. But I heard him preach secondhand through my own daddy, who heard it firsthand and never forgot it. One sermon, one time, about doors a man ought to leave shut out of respect for what he don't understand. Never named a family, never named a holler. But my daddy always said them that were paying attention knew exactly who Asa was talking about. I'm fixin' to be more direct with you than Brother Asa ever was with anybody from any pulpit in his whole life. Lord, forgive me for that, if it needs forgivin'. 'Cause there was a family up one of these hollers that had a single rule for that preacher, and only the one. The back door, the one leadin' down to the root cellar, had to stay shut every time he prayed in that house. Never locked, just shut. And the one night it wasn't even by accident, young'un. I want you settin' with me the way Asa must have set with that family after, not knowin' if what you just felt was something comin' through, or just a man's own conscience findin' a door to walk through instead. Pawpaw Elias. Saturdays and Sundays, that's when I tell 'em. Subscribe if you don't want to lose track, and a like helps this one find its way to more folks. Now, let me take you up that holler. Brother Asa Mullins rode circuit through these mountains most of his grown life. Wasn't the kind of preacher that stayed put in one church house. He'd ride muleback from holler to holler, prayin' in front rooms for families that couldn't get to service regular, a sick child, an old woman too poorly to travel, a family too far back in the hills to make it to town of a Sunday. That was the work. Ride, pray, ride on. He wasn't a man given to exaggeration. My own daddy heard him preach more than once, and said Asa never once told a story from that pulpit that didn't happen exactly the way he told it. Didn't need to dress nothing up. Scripture and plain truth was enough for him. So when he stood up one Sunday and preached on doors, on leaving certain doors shut, out of respect for what a man don't understand, my daddy knew, same as everybody else paying attention, that Asa was talking about something he'd lived, not something he'd made up for a sermon. He never gave a name, never gave a holler. Just the doors, and the respect owed to what's on the other side of 'em. But for you to understand it the way I understand it, you gotta go with me up that holler first. Back to when Asa was young in the work, riding into a yard he'd never seen before, meeting a family that had one rule and only the one. The Stamper place set back up a narrow holler further in than most, where the road give out to a footpath the last quarter mile. Silas Stamper and his wife Ora kept a farm there. Corn on the flat ground, hogs, a garden, Ora tended fierce. Wood smoke off the cook stove of an evening. A root cellar dug back into the hillside behind the house, the kind most every family up in them mountains kept, a low door, packed earth walls, shelves of canned beans and taters to see 'em through winter. Asa come to that house the first time on a Tuesday, sent for on account of Ora's mother being poorly and wanting prayer said over her in the front room. He didn't think nothing of it, riding up just another homestead, same as 100 others he'd prayed in. Silas met him at the yard gate, shook his hand, and 'fore Asa even got both boots inside the door, Silas told him plain. The back door, the one leadin' out to the cellar, was to stay shut the whole time he prayed, not locked, just shut. Asa said that was fine by him. Didn't ask why. Wasn't his place to ask why a man run his own house. He'd heard stranger requests. Families that wanted the Bible held a certain way, that wouldn't pray facing west, that kept a particular chair empty at the table. Mountain folks had their ways, and Asa respected 'em all the same, whether he understood 'em or not. Ora's mother mended, slow but sure, and after that Asa took to comin' by the Stamper place regular, once a month, sometimes twice, same as he'd done for most every family on his circuit. Same rule every time. He'd ride up, Silas would meet him, and for a word of Scripture got said, that back door got checked shut, quiet as passin' the salt at supper. It got so routine to Asa, he quit even noticin' it as a thing worth noticin'. Just the way that house was. That was the Stamper place, month after month, visit after visit. Ordinary as any home Asa ever prayed in, right up until the visit where he started to wonder why. It was a visit come early spring, the ground still soft from thaw, when Asa noticed it, not the door itself, but who was watching it. Every single visit, without fail, one of the Stamper young'uns set nearest that back door the whole time Asa prayed, not told to, not sent there by Silas or Ora neither, near as Asa could tell. Just took up that spot on their own, eyes on the door, same as a man might watch a pot he don't trust to boil over. Asa had prayed in that front room a dozen times by then, and never once put it together till that morning, watching the youngest boy set himself down right against that door frame.
I don't know how much
without
longer
a
we can
word
keep this
from
up, Ora.
anybody.
We have to,
He
Asa. There's
mentioned
nowhere
it
else to
Ora
go.
after Gentle,
But the children,
out on the porch, while Silas was seeing to the mule. Asked her plain why the door mattered so much, why the young'un kept such close watch on something that was already shut. Ora didn't get flustered. Said it kept the cold out of the front room, kept the cellar damp from settling into the floorboards. A body wouldn't want that smell comin' through while company was prayin', she said. Reasonable enough on its face, but it didn't explain the watchin'. A shut door don't need a set of eyes kept on it, not if all a body's worried about is cold air. Asa let it be. Wasn't his business to press a family on their own habits. But he rode away from the Stamper place that day carrying something he hadn't carried before. A question, small as a burr caught in a sock that he couldn't quite shake loose no matter how far down the road he got. That question rode with Asa through the rest of that spring and into summer, and it wasn't the only thing he started noticing. The Stamper place had 5 children living, but Asa got to study in the family Bible one visit, the way preachers do, checking the record page for names to pray over, and there was a 6th name once, up near the top of that page, struck through with a line of ink gone brown with age. Wendell. Nothing else. No date of burying following it, the way the other names had. Just the name, and the line drawn through it, like somebody couldn't bear to leave it, and couldn't bear to keep it neither. He didn't ask Silas about it direct. Asked a neighbor woman instead, one he prayed with further down the same holler, careful and roundabout the way a man asks about something he ain't sure he's got a right to know. She lowered her voice telling him, and her hands went still in her lap while she talked, the way a body's hands go still when the tellin' costs something. Said the Stampers had lost a boy years back. 'Fore Asa ever rode into that holler, Wendell, 8 years old, went out back of the house one evening near dusk and never come back in. They hunted 3 days and 3 nights, near about the whole holler out with lanterns, callin' his name up and down that ridge till their voices give out. Never found so much as a shoe. Said he was last seen playin' round the cellar door, Asa set with that a long while. He'd near about made sense of the whole thing. A family that lost a child that way, keeping a door shut out of grief, out of a wound that never did close up right. He told himself that was likely all there was to it. Grief takes strange shapes in a house. He'd seen it before. Families that couldn't bear a certain chair, a certain room, a certain time of evening. He believed that near enough for a good while longer, right up till the visit that made him wonder if grief was the whole of it or just the part of it a body could stand to say out loud. Let me stop here a second. Heavy as that part is, there's something I always wonder when I'm telling these. Where you setting right now, listening to this? What town, what holler, what stretch of road? This one happened up in the mountains of eastern Kentucky, and I always wonder if anybody's out there listening from close to where it took place. Write it down yonder in the comments. I read every one of 'em. Anyhow, back to it. Asa had his answer about Wendell. He didn't yet have the rest. Now, this next part. Asa never laid out plain to a living soul, not from any pulpit, not to anybody, far as I ever heard. What come next, I only got in pieces. A phrase from that one sermon, a detail my daddy remembered him letting slip, years after, the shape of what a man like Asa would have felt standing in that room. So I'm going to put it in his voice now, the way I believe it happened. And if that's more than Asa ever give away his self, well, I already told you. I'm being more direct with you than he was with anybody. It was a visit like any other late that summer. Silas met me at the gate same as always, told me the same as always, keep the back door shut. I went in, set my hat down, and got to praying over Ora's mother, same as I'd done a dozen times before. Now, I don't rightly know what got into me. Might have been the heat. Might have been I just wanted a breath of air moving through that front room, hot as it was that evening. But part way through the prayer, without thinking on it one bit, I reached back and cracked that door, just a hand's width, enough to let a breeze through. I didn't even remember doing it till I looked up and seen Silas's face gone the color of ash, staring past me at that door standing open a crack behind my shoulder. Ora made a sound I ain't never heard a grown woman make before nor since. Not a scream. Something quieter than that, and worse for being quiet. That's the closest I can put you to how it went. Asa's own words, best I can carry 'em, filled in where the silence had to be filled. And what come next, even I don't tell easy. Let me tell it slow. It goes slow when I picture it, too. Asa said Silas didn't yell, didn't move for a second, just stood there, staring past Asa's shoulder at that gap in the door, his face gone still as a held breath. Then he crossed that room faster than Asa had ever seen a grown man move and shut it. Just shut it. Didn't slam it. Didn't lock it, neither, near as Asa could tell. Just pulled it to, gentle, the way you'd shut a door on a room where somebody's sleeping. And in the second or two the door stood open, Asa never claimed to see a thing. Wouldn't say he did, not once. Not to anybody. What he said was the air changed. Said it come through that gap cold, colder than a root cellar in August had any right to be, and it carried something with it he couldn't put a word to. Not a smell exactly, not a sound exactly, just a weight, coming into that room and settling over the prayer like a hand pressed flat against his chest. Ora didn't make that sound again. She just sat with her mother's hand in both of hers, staring at the floor, and didn't look up again the whole rest of the visit. Asa finished the prayer, said the amen, Nobody in that room said a word to him about what had happened. Not Silas, not Ora. He got up, got his hat, and left. He told his fellow travelers later, the little bit he ever told, that he didn't sleep good for near on a month after, and that he never again, not one time, in all the years he kept riding that circuit, forgot to check that door was shut for he said the first word of a prayer. That's as far as the words go. What Asa believed happened in that room, he carried that to his grave without saying, and I don't reckon it's mine to put words in his mouth where he chose to leave none. Now, Asa did go back. Wasn't in him to quit a family over something he couldn't explain, not with Ora's mother still poorly and needing prayer said over her regular. But the next time he rode up, Silas met him at the gate, different than before. Older looking, Asa said, like that one visit had cost him something. And, 'fore Asa could say a word about it, Silas said his piece, the only time he ever did. Said after Wendell went missing, they hunted that whole holler top to bottom 3 days running. But the cellar, their own cellar, not 50 foot from the back door, they didn't think to search proper till the second day. Said when they finally did, the door was standing open, though Ora swore up and down she'd shut it herself that morning, same as she did every morning of her life. Wendell wasn't in there. Nothing was different about it, near as anybody could tell, but Silas said something in him knew, right then standing in that cellar with the door open and nothing inside but jarred beans and cold dirt, that whatever took his boy had come and gone through that door, and he weren't never going to leave it open again for nobody, prayer or no prayer. That's all Silas gave him. Wasn't an explanation, not really. More a promise, one he'd made to Ora and kept every day since, whether it made sense to anybody outside that house or not. Some folks in that holler, when the story got told at all, said it was grief, plain and simple, a father looking for somewhere to put blame after losing a child, latching on to a door 'cause a door's easier to guard than a memory. Others said different. Said a door a boy was last seen playing near, standing open when it shouldn't been, on the very day he vanished. That's not nothing. Explain it however a body wants to. I don't know which is true. Asa didn't know either, near as I can tell. But knowing that much didn't answer everything, and it sure didn't bring Wendell home. Asa kept riding up to the Stamper place a good while longer, same as always. But it wasn't the same, and both men knew it, even if neither one ever said so out loud. He still checked that door first thing, for a word got prayed. Still shook Silas's hand at the gate, but there was a distance between 'em now that hadn't been there before, the kind that grows up between two men who've seen the same thing and can't neither one of 'em name it. Then one spring Asa rode up that holler, same as he'd done for years, and the Stamper place stood empty. Not burned, not tore down, just empty. Door unlocked. Furniture still settin' where it always set, like they'd walked out one afternoon and never come back to finish supper. Neighbors down the holler said the family had moved off sudden, in the night, near as anybody could tell, without a word to nobody about where. Asa never learned where they went, never heard the name Stamper again, not in that county, not in the next one over. He kept riding his circuit for years after, praying in other folks' front rooms, and far as anybody knows, he never told the story straight to another living soul. Just that one time, from the pulpit, without a name attached. That empty house stood a long while after. Roof fell in eventually, way houses do when nobody's left to mind 'em. But the root cellar held. Still does, far as I know. dug in too deep and too solid for time to bother much with. And that's the end of it. Whatever the end of it is, that one sets heavy. I know it does. So tell me, was Silas right to keep that door shut all them years over something he never could name? Or was it just a man's grief, finding a shape it could hold on to, so it didn't have to hold on to nothing else? I've turned it both ways in my head more times than I can count. Write down where you land. I read every one of 'em. Come back this weekend, would you? I got one about a diary a man left behind in a mine, and what it says about a fella that walked in one Tuesday morning and never come back out. 9 men watched him go in. 9 men swore to it. That's the whole of what I know about the Stamper place, and about Brother Asa Mullins, and about the one sermon he ever preached on doors a man ought to leave shut out of respect for what he don't understand. I told you at the start I was being more direct with you than he ever was with anybody. I stand by that, but I understand him better now than I did setting down to tell you this. A man can carry a thing his whole life and still not have the words for it, not 'cause he's hiding something, but 'cause some things don't fit a sentence right. Asa found the closest he could get one Sunday from a pulpit without a name attached. I reckon that was his way of setting the weight down without dropping it on nobody. Lord keep the Stampers, wherever they ended up, and Wendell, too, wherever he is. That's the one. That's all I got for you tonight.